The team is the work. The team is the legacy. The team is the special sauce. The team is the competitive advantage in today's marketplace.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Slow Smoke Business Podcast. I'm Jarrod Morgan, and today we've got a really special show set up for you. We have Shawn Lovejoy, who is the founder and president of Courage to Lead, who's going to talk to us today about leadership and people skills and all sorts of that tricky stuff when it comes to leading an organization. And while we're talking to Shawn, we are going to be, I haven't even revealed this to Shawn yet, we're going to be grilling a pork roast, right? So this is a pork loin stuffed with Italian sausage and wrapped in bacon. And I would like to humbly announce that Shawn Lovejoy is here. Thank you, Shawn, for joining us.
Great to be with you, man.
And excited to announce that Shawn is officially, unbeknownst to me, Slow Smoke Business's first pescatarian, vegetarian, non-meat eater on the show. So he does grill, though. Is that right, Shawn?
I do grill, and it's an honor to have this title.
Yeah, it'll be. Yeah, exactly. So
your first non-carnivore guest.
You don't hate it, right? I mean, it's not gonna. We can. I can always grill this later if we need to.
No, you're great, man.
Okay, so we're gonna throw this on the grill. One thing about eating lots of veggies is you don't have to worry about salmonella like I do. So I'm gloving up here, and I'm gonna set this bad boy on the grill. We've got the pellet grill rolling. We're gonna go low and slow today, so I've got it at put it at about 300, which is gonna allow us to do this for a little while. Okay, there we go. Now I hit it with a little extra barbecue rub. This came from, once again, my favorite butcher shop here locally, the Cajun Cleaver. Set us up with a nice thing. I have to be truthful and not try to claim that I actually stuffed this pork loin. There we go. So Shawn, so excited to have you here. I met Shawn a couple of years ago. I believe it was either at a leadership conference or some kind of business thing, and I was so impressed with you and your story and what you were doing with Courage to Lead. So if you could just give us your story and tell us how you came to found Courage to Lead.
Yeah, so I was a real estate developer, crushing it in the marketplace in my 20s. Felt God called me into the vocational ministry, walked away from the real estate business, went to seminary, became a church planter, started a church in my home with one other couple. And we broke 1,000 people in year 3 and kind of never looked back after that. But I always felt like a business guy trapped in a pastor's body. And I was really good between Sundays. I sort of endured preaching. That was not my favorite thing to do. I loved meetings. I love building teams. I love spreadsheets. I love processes, but that meant we had a pretty buttoned up church. And I quickly realized a lot of pastors were equipped to lead on Sundays, but not equipped to lead between Sundays.
That's interesting.
So I started coaching pastors and churches and consulting with them, like how to get better between Sundays. And then my engagement in the community, my service to the community was the Rotary Club, the Chamber of Commerce. I served on the board of a hospital and a college, and business people would ask my advice, which was surprising, and I helped them. And over time, I just realized, hey, you know what? I'm a pretty good pastor, but I'm really good in boardrooms and coffee shops with executives in the ministry and the marketplace. And so that led us to make the second scariest decision, I call it, in our lives, to hand off the church that had grown to be a mega church with multiple campuses, to go all in on coaching. And I've now been coaching leaders in the ministry and the marketplace for 20 years.
Wow.
But I've been doing it full time now for 8 years.
I don't think successful church pastors get enough credit for the entrepreneurial elements that go into building it. I mean, it's a business, and it's an absolute organization where you have to find people, get good people, put them in the right roles, manage them, and drive towards sustainability, which is tough in a church environment, right? Because it's very different than that part of it is very different than a business. Do you find that it's hard to find people that have both of those things, like the great sort of pastoral spirit and elements, and also have those business skill sets that it takes to be successful?
It is. Thus the need to build a team. You need all of that. You need a true shepherd, someone who's really like that. My deficit was pragmatically like I was a pastor, but I wasn't pastoral. Just the way I was wired. I'm a visionary, I'm a leader, I'm a process builder, I'm a systems thinker, all of that. So I needed guys that loved to just have coffee with people and really love on people because it didn't come easy for me. And speaking to what you said earlier, it's interesting. You would note this, Jarrod. You'd appreciate this. When I first got into the pastorate, over 25 years ago now, I remember thinking, I can't believe pastors have never heard of some of this basic leadership blocking and tackling and basic HR stuff. But now with the age of the mega church, okay, which people like John Maxwell and Rick Warren ushered in, 30, 40 years ago now, I feel like the average mega church pastor has had more leadership training, more of that soft skills training of how to build leadership teams at every level than your average marketplace leader. It's crazy how the roles have flipped.
Yeah, and it's interesting to see how you can thread the needle. There are some ones that are doing it really, really well now. Certainly Chris Hodges, I know you know, and guys that are doing a great job building a big organization but staying really mission oriented. I think you have, as a pastor building a church, you just have such less, leeway to get things wrong in terms of your mission and how things are. I don't think people are as forgiving as they are of a business.
Yeah, the difficult thing about the ministry world is they've got hundreds, oftentimes thousands or thousands of opinions, watching, and it's a volunteer built organization. So that creates, great complexities. The other side of it is, on the marketplace side, if you don't sell, you don't eat.
Boy,
You
might.
So there's a new drive to make sales and close deals. That's a unique pressure that the ministry side doesn't feel because it's donation driven.
Yeah. What do you so when you work with business leaders, what do you think is the most common thing? If you go in and you talk to somebody who's running a business, the most common thing that they are struggling with, or the thing where you talk to them and you instantly see the gap there. What's the most common thing that people are messing up these days?
Yeah, well, I tell guys, the two biggest lies from hell I ever believed. One, it'll be easier when we get to here because it gets more complex,
Amen to that.
more zeros, more responsibility, all that. And two, if we can just hire this person, it'll solve our problems.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
But then you realize every person is a potential problem, and so people tensions will always be the number one tension. People tensions.
Yeah. I was blessed to be in an organization, start an organization and grow it for a long periods of time. And I fell into that sort of fallacy too, of thinking like, man, if we just I used to think in the early days, like, man, if I could just get a paycheck every 2 weeks, like, wow, this would be a lot easier. And then once that happened, it'd be like, well, if I could just get everybody to market rate, then gosh, and then if I could just, if we just hire this, if I could just get that one account, or if we and we always joked, we would say the great philosopher Notorious B.I.G. once said, "Mo money, mo problems," right? And it really is true. Like the bigger you get, the more complex the problems that you deal with are. And the people side is really the most rewarding and most challenging at the same time. It's rewarding when you give somebody an opportunity and you set them up, and then they take it and run with it and they're super successful. And then there's the bad side of when, like, somebody doesn't come through, or they're not holding up their end of the bargain, or their life's just not in a position where they can make this happen, and you got to part ways with somebody. The people human element of it is the hardest thing. Do you find when you talk to business leaders that they struggle with that, or do they fall into two camps where there's the cold, calculated people that don't really care about the human side of it, and then there's the touchy-feely people, or is it What do you think you see most of the time?
Yeah, there are really only two categories. I tell leaders there are only two categories of people you hire. There are those that are task oriented, they're hard charging, they're a stallion that you kind of have to bridle. They can also be a bull in a china shop and create a bloodbath behind them to get the job done.
Right.
And so you have to sort of, learn how to harness them. They have to be coachable and teachable and along the way. And then there's that other group of people that like love to stand around and drink coffee in the break room, but they just don't get anything done and they don't want to be held accountable. And I've honestly never been able to put drive in someone.
No.
So I would rather have those people that tend to make a mess, sometimes a relational mess, because that's coachable. I tell leaders the most encouraging thing, are you originally from Alabama?
Yeah. No, actually originally from North Florida, which is sort
So
of pseudo Alabama.
So
But
I'm from Alabama. We're 48th on every national list. Thank God for
right.
Mississippi and
Thank God.
Louisiana.
That's right.
So your IQ never gets higher once you're born, but your EQ, your ability to manage your own emotions,
Mm.
to be aware of the signals that you're sending when you walk into a room, to recognize your strengths and your weak, like all that can improve, that can grow, that can get better. And your LQ, your leadership quotient, those are skills that can be learned. So that's the most encouraging thing. Maybe if you're listening or watching today and you don't feel like you're the most brilliant person, you don't have to be the most brilliant. You just have to be the most disciplined and willing to grow. And if you are, and if you're willing to be coachable and teachable, and you're willing to have courage to lead, no pun intended, that's why I named our organization that, and coach the leaders around you that have some rough edges but are brilliant, therein lies the sleeping synergy within any organization.
Yeah, that's so good because it is encouraging to hear, that you don't have to be the smartest person in the room. You don't have to be that you shouldn't be the smartest person in your organization. But I think that's really encouraging, and certainly, I mean, I'm living proof that you don't have to be the smartest guy to build an organization, right? But the ability to grow and learn. I look back on some of the ways that I reacted to challenges early in my career, and it's embarrassing to think about it a little bit, right? When you sort of,
Right.
you fly off the handle and things like that, and you let it go. As you get a little older and you've gone through those things, you handle things with a little more grace and a little more sort of detachment, and you go, well, you've sort of seen it all, and you realize that life and careers and businesses are ups and downs and waves, and there are, sometimes it feels like there's an existential crisis around every corner, but oftentimes it's not. And even when that thing happens, there's a path forward that you can find if you just sort of stick to your principles and stick to the, working with your team and working with either, if you have investors or leaders or whoever it is that you need to work with, you can find a path forward. It's hard to tell people that early on because they don't know what they don't know. I didn't know what I didn't know. That's why I think, things like courage to lead are so important. I've always been a big believer too in you got to keep learning, and it's not just learning, your industry or your product or whatever, but also learning and upskilling yourself and all the soft skills that you're talking about.
Yeah. I meet so many leaders, Jarrod, it just blows my mind, who say, well, I'm just not really a reader, or I don't really listen to podcasts.
Uh-oh.
And I'm like, what? Like, so if
I hope you
if
talk to a lot of people.
you just said to me, you have no desire to get better. That's what you just said to me. You
Yeah.
just said to me, you've learned all that you think you need to learn. I mean, what an arrogant statement that is to
Yeah.
make if you think about it. And if you stop growing as a leader, sooner or later, your team will stop growing. Your organization will stop growing. I mean, but if you're getting better, it's amazing how everyone and everything else gets better if you're getting better. But we want everyone else to get better. We want everybody else to improve. We want to be frustrated at everybody else when we're not growing.
Right.
And oftentimes, especially organizations in the marketplace, they promote technicians, people who are really good at a segment of the business, but they don't necessarily grow in EQ and LQ to match their promotions within the organization. So they're literally promoted beyond their leadership qualification. And therein
Yeah.
lies the tension, the frustration, the discouragement, the imploding, of companies that we see out there. Everything from WeWork to the founder of Uber getting run out of his own company. Founder of Papa John got run out of his own company during COVID. I don't know if you saw that, because
Yeah.
they were great entrepreneurs. They were great pizza makers, let's just say. They were great at technology, but they didn't have the EQ and the LQ to maintain a healthy culture and a healthy team. They didn't have the leadership skill to match their technical ability, and it literally began to crumble companies, and it always will.
Yeah. On a side note, I don't know if you saw the headline that came out this week, but the founder of WeWork, Adam Newman, has started another company, and somebody has written him a $350 million check to start kind of make a
I'm
WeWork
not
of.
even surprised.
Re-
He's brilliant. He's
well, yeah,
brilliant.
he's a brilliant guy. However,
He will always be the smartest guy in the room,
yeah, just
but
just
I
asking,
liken
right?
it to like Steve Jobs version 1 and Steve Jobs version 2. Some people don't remember Steve Jobs got run out of his own company.
Yes, he did. Yeah.
He was brilliant at technology. He didn't know how to get along with people,
Yeah.
and he comes back with higher EQ and LQ. And literally, we know the name Apple still today because he became better at leading within a team and working well with others and managing his own,
He did his best work.
emotions and all of that, and being a more poised leader. So it's a fantastic story
Yeah,
as well.
he did his best work when he came back, right? His
Yeah,
second stint. That's when he did the iPhone and all the i stuff, right?
yeah.
It's amazing. So I mean, when you start coaching leaders and you start talking about tough conversations, this is something I wanted to talk to you about, because I think you have a nice kind of way of looking at this type of thing. If a leader is you've got to have a tough conversation with a member of your team, and they're struggling with that, because that is one of the hardest things to learn. Like, it's easy. I don't say it's easy, but it comes a little more naturally for a lot of people to sort of gather a tribe around you and everybody lock arms and we're going to take this mountain. And it becomes harder when one of the people in that crowd is either not living up to what they said they were going to do, or the results aren't where you need them to be, and you have to have a difficult conversation. What are the things that you can tell somebody to think about and so that they can make that a productive conversation and not turn into a fight?
Yeah, so just several things. One, if those kind of conversations come easy for you, you probably need counseling for that. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, yeah. So if you should, before you have to have, I call them courageous conversations. You probably should lose a little bit of sleep for a night or two before. But in all my years of coaching, Jarrod, I have never had a leader say to me, I had that conversation too soon. Think about that.
Yeah.
Never, not one time. But if I had a nickel for every leader who had said to me, Shawn, I waited too long to have this conversation, and it's way worse, and it's like cancer, and the opposite. I don't like the word confrontation. I prefer courageous conversations because it does require some courage. But the opposite of conflict is not peace, it's artificial harmony. And one of the commitments I made to my teams over the years, this blows people's minds, that I actually led this way and coached this way. And I've coached now thousands of leaders to do the same. I will never go home at the end of the day and say something to my spouse about you I'm not willing to say to you on my team. If you think about it, that lacks integrity.
Yeah.
So even though it's uncomfortable for me to approach you and have a courageous conversation with you, it's a commitment of integrity for me. That allows me to get past my own inhibitions, my fears, and I do think the evil one, I'm a person of faith, the evil one has a picture in our minds, an episode of an old Jerry Springer episode, where people are throwing chairs and taking off their shirts in conflict, it just never goes that badly. But we picture the world's worst happening, when in reality, if we'll meet it head on and say, hey, need to talk to you about something. We've helped teams normalize conversation, and we talk about the last 10%. Most leaders say 90% of what they're thinking, but they hold back the last 10%. And we want to build last 10% teams. where the last 10% gets on the table. And not just top down, by the way, but bottom up. I want to be approachable. I want to be a team member who's a leader whose team members feel like they have permission to help me see my blind spots as well. And I want to be approachable. I want to be coachable because I know sometimes I can be a bull in a china shop,
Yeah.
and so I need that, but it's the best thing I can do for them. There's an old proverb that says wounds from an enemy, kisses from an enemy, but wounds are from a friend. And so I would say to leaders on my team, hey, welcome to our team. We're going to wound you because we're your friend. We're going to sharpen you. We're going to make you better. Iron sharpens iron, heat and friction. I'm going to give you permission to sharpen me, and I'm going to sharpen you. But here's the trick, okay? If you're defensive, if you're insecure, and you're not approachable and you're not coachable, we can't be on the same team together because you're not going to grow anymore. You're done growing. You've grown all you can grow on my team when you're not approachable or coachable anymore. And it's best to help find you another team because it's so important for growth.
Yeah, it's when you find people that feel like they have all the answers. They're usually earlier in their career. I would say that most of the people that I've met and interacted with that I would consider really successful people, sort of like the higher you go up on the success ladder, the more you find most people think they know less than they did when they were lower on the success ladder. It's like the
True.
more you know, the more you realize you don't know. And there's a freedom from coming to realize that you don't have to have all the answers. There's a freedom that comes from, realizing that I don't have to solve every problem or think of every solution. I just have to know where to find one or where to set an organization up so that we kind of ferret out the best option and move forward instead of sitting back. We talked about it one episode ago where people get the Steve Jobs complex. I think Steve Jobs is very misunderstood, to kind of piggyback off of what you were saying. People think that he was this, perfect genius that was right his entire career. That guy was wrong so many times. There were abysmal failures. Look at Next Computer, which was sort of between stints at Apple, that was really only got traction because of his name. He built some incredible stuff, but that ended up pivoting into a whole bunch of other things. Later in his career, when he started to build guys up around him, Johnny Ive and all these people, Tim Cook, guys that are now running Apple now that he's gone, that's when they started to become things that were really changing the world. They're putting out products that are changing the world.
So true.
And it wasn't until he was able to find people and empower them. And if you read Walter Isaacson's biography about him, there were just lots of chapters of him, belittling people and, certainly a lot more earlier in his career. And I kind of did that the whole time. He was a prickly guy, but as he got older, it was easier for him to coach people or give them room to be successful. And you can find interviews where you can see his sort of evolution on that.
Yeah, and the higher IQ that you do have, like you're 4, 5, 7 steps ahead of everybody in the room. But if you're not careful, it'll make you this negative, frustrated, cynical, pessimistic. Everything's wrong with everyone and everything, all the time. And I say in my book, Measuring Success, that it was year 3 of being a pastor. Our church had gone from 4 to 1,000 people in 3 years. I'm feeling good about myself. I'm lying in bed one night and I asked my wife, hey, how do you think things are going? And I figured I was fishing for a compliment. And she said, I don't like what this is turning you into. Wow. She said, you have become this negative, cynical perfectionist that everything's wrong with everyone and everything all the time. No one's good enough, and no one can meet your expectations. And you used to be the life of the party. And I realized what a fast growing organization had done to me, or what I had allowed it to do to me, and so I'm a hard charge, Enneagram 8, high D, pioneer, entrepreneur. And if I'm not careful, I'll be frustrated and angry most days. And I tell guys, joy is a choice. It's not a circumstance, and if you're buying into that mirage that out there someday when you get to here and you have X and these amount of zeros that you're going to be happy, I'm telling you, it's a mirage because I've been there. I've been there in the marketplace. I've been there in the ministry. It's very empty. So you gotta learn to like enjoy the journey and love the team you have now and steward them well, develop them well, lead them well. Because I think there's like a spiritual principle attached to that. I do. If you're faithful what you have now, you know, but if you're wearing people out now and belittling people now and crushing people now, like, why would God send you more people?
Yeah.
That's what I believe.
I agree. I'm going to check the grill while we're chatting now. You touched on something that I really wanted to get on, which was faith in the workplace. Oh, look at it, low and slow, baby. She's coming along nicely. Okay.
So you don't flip it at all, or do you flip it at a certain point?
I probably won't flip that. When something's wrapped in bacon, it's probably not worth the hassle because things are going to flop off. You either have to, make it a pincushion with toothpicks, or you've got to kind of, deal with just kind of leave it there. When you're slow smoking something like that, though, it'll kind of cook pretty evenly because the heat's sort of circulating through there, and you're not like blasting it with heat underneath it.
I'm a quick griller. I'm always a quick griller. I don't do well with the green egg and the long process stuff. I'm just not wired that way.
The ceramic grills, I love them. I had one for a long time. I'm gonna get another one. They just don't work for, Tuesday night. I want to throw something on for the wife and kids. Like, hey, let's have 45 minutes of pomp and circumstance. And it just doesn't. It doesn't. Which is why I like the pellet grills. Pellet grill has actually replaced a gas grill for me because gas grills were the things that you fire up and throw some chicken wings on really quick and eat on a Wednesday, and you can do the same thing with a pellet grill, but you get a much nicer kind of smoky flavor to it. You'd think I'd be sponsored by these guys at this point, but I'm not. So
you should go for that.
I really am going to. I'm trying to get this thing going. So let's talk about faith in the workplace because I think you are a uniquely well-positioned person to talk about that. I know that, as my organization grew and the more people, I had investors, I had other people coming in, the less comfortable I had being as open with that as I probably was in the earlier days. What do you tell people about how their faith should work and fold into their professional life?
Well, I've never put a fish sticker on my business card, and I've never had a Christian bumper sticker, and I'm not a big fan. And if you have to lead with that, I have found oftentimes those are the people that'll mess you over the fastest. If they have to lead with that, that's almost like they're covering over, some character flaws. And so I've never had to lead with my faith in any room. When I was a pastor and very involved in the civic community, I was very aware that, oh my God, here's the pastor walking up in a circle, and I went to the business after hours event where the alcohol was going. Of course, the pastor shows up, and in most circles, they're like, put the booze up,
so tucking it away. Yeah,
I had to work double hard to I'm just Shawn. I'm just your friend. I'm here to serve the community. I'm here to be your friend, and I don't care what you believe or how you behave. I'm your friend. I think it's really, really, really important. And one of the biggest flaws that I think people of faith make is trying to get people to believe like you and behave like you before you can be in relationship with them. When in reality, we were taught in the New Testament that we're to be salt and light. Salt preserves things. It adds flavor to the world. Light lives in darkness. I would have people walk up to me in the lobby of our auditorium, Jarrod, and they'd say, "Hey, pray for me that God will surround me with Christian friends." I'm like, I'm not going to pray that for you. That's what church is for. I'm going to pray God surround you with pagans. Okay?
Right.
Because that's where your greatest impact is going to be. The church is the huddle. The marketplace is where you go. And so I kind of took a page out of John Maxwell's, book. Here are 8 reasons why I've been successful. I'm going to give you the first 7. You'll have to ask me afterwards about the 8th one. And it's really
Oh, yeah.
foundational to who I am. That's my faith. It informs me. So I want to live my life in such a way, that people ask me for the reason for the hope that I have and the joy that I have and the faith that I have. I went in this week and gave a talk to a $1 billion company in annual revenue that we're consulting with. And my experience as an observation has been they're not offended at all that I'm a person of my faith and that I talk about my faith. As long as I'm not trying to get them without a relationship to try to believe and behave like me at the outset, you know, unless I'm trying to beat them over the head with it, without the privilege of a relationship. So I think in the marketplace as a person of faith, you've got to earn the permission to be more vocal with your faith in those relationships. I mean, the opposite true is what you said is like we get too timid, we get too afraid. We're told don't talk about politics or religion. Well, they are. They are people that aren't of faith are talking about religion and politics every day. Either we're going to exempt ourselves from the whole conversation and an opportunity to have influence, or enter into it and be courteous and honoring and professional, but talk about our faith and talk about politics, talk about religion in an open dialogue with people. In today's world, if you disagree with somebody, you're supposed to hate them. And that's so
Yeah.
unfortunate. And as people of faith and people not of faith.
Right. Yeah, it's we could go on for that for an hour. I mean, but yeah, we really are in a spot in the world where, respectful disagreement is not a thing that, people believe in anymore. It's got to be, all or nothing. You either got to completely believe in somebody or completely write them off. And I think that's a dangerous place to be on both sides of that coin.
Both
I've talked
sides.
about that for a long time. One of the things I believe in heroes is that you should be really careful making a human being your hero and thinking if you buy into everything that somebody says, there is a problem, because there should not be a single person walking this earth that gets everything right. That you agree with everything they did. Their experiences and their beliefs are going to be different than yours. And if you find somebody that's just blindly following a person, oftentimes it's a person that they don't know, that's a problem. And you should think for yourself, and it's okay to think for yourself. I know when I'm saying that, people are probably thinking about, politics and political leaders, but I'm actually talking about, any kind of celebrity. I'm talking about people in the workplace. I know I found myself early in my career when I would have some mentors, and you would find yourself, sort of feeling like you had to agree with everything that person said. And there was a lot of growth personally for me in my career when I realized that it was okay if I disagreed, or it was okay if I watched a person that I had considered a mentor do something and I go, I don't agree with that, or I wouldn't do it that way. And there's a respectful way to sort of address that. Not all mentors can handle that, for sure. But I think the faster you realize that you can't put all of your faith in a human being, right? The quicker you can sort of, move to principles more than individuals.
It's very true. There's an old saying in the South, you eat the fish and spit out the bones. I can learn something from anyone, but so often we're critical of people who don't think just like us. And there is such a thing as groupthink.
Yeah.
We have 20 coaches now at Courage to Lead, and we purposely pair a coach with a leader that has a little bit different worldview and is running a different lane. Not the same, because they're already subject to groupthink. We want someone that complements you, is different from you, and will challenge your blind spots, help you to see the world differently. That's what will enable your breakthrough.
So you just kind of buried the lead there a little bit. 20? You have 20 coaches now
Yeah.
at Courage to
Yeah.
Lead? That's incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. From Orange County, California to Rochester, New York. Yeah. And everywhere in between. Yeah.
So if people want to find Courage to Lead, or I can't imagine they didn't they haven't switched on to some of the things you're saying here, and they want to interact with you. You've got books. Tell us a little bit about where they can find you and your organization.
CourageToLead.com is where our stratosphere for marketplace leaders. We still have a ministry division called CourageousPastors.com. We have 2 podcasts, the Courage to Lead podcast, the Courageous Pastors podcast. And I just released my 4th book, Building a Killer Team Without Killing Yourself or Your Team. So
Wow.
that's killerteambook.net. So we're giving it away. I self-published it, this one, so we could give it away for my cost of printing it plus the shipping.
Wow.
Yeah.
And why are you doing that? I think I know why.
Because my end game is not to be a famous author. I know if people, get connected to our content, a certain percentage of them are going to say, hey, we need more than a book. We need a coach. And I think every organization needs a coach. I don't know of an organization who broke through. Yours never have either, without some kind of outside influence. You've always been a learner. I know that about you, and so I think every team needs that. So we know we'll win in the end by just delivering a lot of value.
Well, that's the sneaky, unspoken secret about this podcast. This is my sneaky way of just learning from a bunch of people and getting a chance to talk to you for a half hour and people like you. So yeah, I think, I'm, whether or not you go to college and keep going to college, that's one way to learn. But I think you can never stop trying to better yourself, learning, evolving, because there's no way for you to know everything. And so once you sort of realize there's no way to know everything, then yeah, you're required to learn to sort of live a healthy life and a fulfilled life, and certainly build a healthy organization.
I tell my kids, Jarrod, that it's a quote from Zig Ziglar. Formal education will make you a living. Self-education will make you a fortune.
Whew. Yeah. I love some Zig Ziglar. Yeah, that's a great one. I mean, I think if I look at, what I learned in college, I think it opened a few doors for me. But certainly what got me, to where I'm at now and where I want to go is not any of that. It's the humble desire to sort of look at what other people have done and learn from it and realize that there's growth to be had as long as you realize you don't have all the answers, right? And this podcast has been a lot of fun because it's been a way for me to kind of get out of my comfort zone a little bit and have some fun and talk about things at a broader level. But it's growth, right? And I feel like, when you feel stagnant as a person, you got to push yourself into things to grow more. And, so that's what, when people that are watching this podcast, like that's what's going on with me, and you're getting to watch it here. But lucky for me, I get to connect with people like Shawn. So before I let you go, let's do one more check on the grill. By the way, let's see, I turn the heat up a little bit. So see if it does any better.
I would be so nervous if I were you, like walking off from that and leaving it again, because I cook things at such a high temperature. You can't leave it for a minute.
So when you, that's true. When you're, if you're cooking something slow enough, the Idiot's Guide to Slow Smoke Barbecue, which is what I'm writing with my own life, right, is if you turn it really low and then you walk away, it's better to do that and come back and it's not cooking fast enough than to go the other direction, which I've done many times. You go up too high, you walk off, you go pour yourself an iced tea, you come back and, everybody's eating burned, my kids are like, Dad, I'm like, I'm sorry, so I would much rather do it slow, and then you can kind of crank it up while you're sitting there watching with it. But temperature probes and things like that are the big friend. For me, I was always really afraid of, salmonella or not cooking things enough when you're doing pork or chicken or whatever. And so once I got used to using temperature probes, it made things a lot easier. But this isn't a grilling podcast. This is a business podcast. I always say that because people start chatting me, like, hey, what are you doing?
It's great, though.
I know, guys. How dare I did some sausage a couple of episodes ago, and it was like a coil sausage. I had a couple people email me like, why didn't you put a skewer through that thing, man? And I'm like, at no point did I say this was a culinary show, right? This is just a dude in his backyard. So last thing I want to ask you, I think this would be really great. I try to ask this question to most of my guests. If you were talking to somebody who told you, hey, you know what, I feel the calling of entrepreneurship and I want to start a business. And, you know, what advice could you give me? What would you say to a person that's just starting out? They want to start and build a business and they don't have a clue what they're doing.
Don't be an entrepreneur.
Okay.
Be a leader.
Okay. All right. I didn't know where that
Be a
was going.
leader.
I thought you were talking us out of it.
It circles back to what we said earlier. Your ability will not come through the product or the strategy or the technology. Your breakthrough will come through your ability to build a team, a killer team. If you can't build a team, you're not going to have a breakthrough. I don't care if you're a world-class chef. I don't care if you're a world-class technician or IT person, whatever, or salesman, whatever. You're going to have to build a team. So don't think in terms of like, what do I want to start? Think in terms of who do I want to start it with? And therein lies the ability for breakthrough. If you'll build a killer foundational team, you know, you'll break through to the next level. Regardless of product or strategy or technology, the team is the work, the team is the legacy, the team is the special sauce, the team is the competitive advantage in today's marketplace.
I couldn't agree more. I hadn't thought about it that way in a while, but man, like, you know, for my own journey, it was the team. And the best moments that we ever had, the most successful, it was because we had the right team all facing in the right direction. Everybody motivated, everybody believing in each other and trusting each other. And yeah, that's incredible advice. So Shawn, thank you so much, my brother, for being here. I loved having you. So everybody can check him out, couragetolead.com. It's killerteambook.com, right?
.net. Killerteambook.net.
Killerteambook.net. couragetolead.com, and go find our friend Shawn and all his friends that are doing great stuff. Thank you so much for being here, Shawn.
Honored, man.
Talk to you soon. We'll check the pork one time. Thanks, everybody. I think we're going to get this thing. Yeah, it's going to go for a little bit while longer.